Chaos is transformed into order by the word. If you want chaos, turn into hell, lie. If you want chaos, turn into heaven, tell the truth. It's harder to rule yourself than to rule the city. You are more complicated and more important. Human thirst for war. State of mind: you need to be willing and ready to commit atrocity. Personality. If you are angry equals you're possessed by the god of war, Aries or Mars. If you are making a fool of yourself equals you're possessed by Eros, Cupid, or Venus. That was how the archaic people viewed the world. But now, Freud, we are a loosely united collection of subpersonalities. You can't understand good until you understand evil. You don't go to the good without going somewhere you don't want to go first. Titus Andronicus. About vengeance. We look for sociological reason. Poverty, not red violence. Relative poverty, lack of education/ignorance. Voluntary and consciously intent destructiveness. Understanding that people could do that, that you could do that. So, you might be morally obliged to undertake an examination of the motives of your own behavior. The personality for today: it's hell is a bottomless pit, because no matter how bad it is, there's some stupid thing that you can do to make it worse. Eric Harris, Columbine Kid. If you read what they say, you can see why they did that. Became possessed of his own free choice. By a personality composed of ideological rigidity, pride, resentment, deceptions, and vengefulness. His comments. Government systems. He understood the Nazis perfectly well. You can say whatever else you want to say, but he wasn't stupid. Pride. People, parents, God, teachers, telling me what to do, think, say, act, just make me not want to do it. I wish I was God. I have the ability to deceive people. And before I leave this place, I will kill whoever I deem unfit for anything at all. John Milton, Paradise Lost. Not be like God, but superior to God. Intellectual pride: everything I know is sufficient and there's nothing transcendent beyond that. Resentment. Divided into three. Arrogance: I already know enough. Deceit: I can twist the fabric of reality for my favor and I can get away with it. Resentment: the world is unjust and tragic, and is aimed at me unfairly. Don't say to me, that's your fault, because it isn't. You could have treated me better, respect me, and ask for my knowledge. So, I wouldn't be as ready to tear your heads off. I always hated how I looked. Deception. I lie a lot into everybody. It's okay if I'm a hypocrite, but no one else. Cain and Abel. Cain resentful, deceitful, and vengeful. Because his sacrifices aren't accepted by God. They used to see the cosmos as the infinite when you see at the sky in the night. So, if you burn something, God will see if what you're offering is of quality or not. But now, we have the psychological equivalent. I always ask to my students, what sacrifices did your parents make so that you could go to university? If you sacrifice properly, then reality will shine its benevolent face on you, otherwise we wouldn't work. Cain is mad because Abel is getting everything. Everyone loved Abel, all the flocks are flourishing, and he is a really good guy. Which is extremely annoying, especially to Cain. So, Cain had a chat with God. What a stupid place have you made here? I'm working myself to the bone, all I get it's the dregs. And there's Abel, everything he touches turns to gold. Arrogant, because it's Cain's fault, not God's. But that's something that Cain is not willing to entertain. So, God say, sin means to miss the bullseye. Sin comes in and Cain plays with it and develops it and produces something new out of it. That makes Cain so mad. That kills Abel. So, God says that leave alone Cain, not kill him. Because there is a propensity for that kind of vengeful killing to expand into the community. Which happens in the story of Cain and Abel. And the last one of Cain's descendants, named Tubal-Cain, which it's the first person to make weapons of war. Which means, that the individual resentment manifested as homicidal rage is the precondition for the spread of that mode of being into the community, will degenerate into everyone against everyone. Back to Columbine kids. Moral. I choose to kill and damage as much as nature allows me. Destroy as much as possible. Burn the world. Cain kills Abel also because it's the favorite of God. So, it's taking revenge against God and being itself. Hate. The lovely sound of bones cracking and flesh ripping. Torture everyone. Explode as tanks. If I can wipe a few cities of the map, then great. Kill mankind, no one should survive. What he was planning to do was much more destructive than what he actually managed. A set of infinitely destructive desires and wishes. Evil vs good. An eternally battle, everywhere. That's why we go to theaters, music. Even if we don't know what to believe. We still are inclined to watch that drama present itself on stage on endless variations. And the reason for that is that it's true. The human capacity and desire for atrocity, without viewing through a metaphysical lens. You can't understand that kind of person, without using dramatic or religious language. Because you cannot formulate either the question nor the answer with enough profundity, without that kind of representation. So, you'll never understand the desire for atrocity, without the problem of evil. Milton represented Satan as a rebel against the idea that was something that exceeded his power and that was transcendent. So, you can interpret that as an admirable rebel. That's the same that happened to Harris. Even though he was only a momentary embodiment of the eternal desire to obliterate everything. It's a permanent element of the human psyche, it's ineradicable, eternal, archetypal, structural. Everyone knows that life is tragic, to exist is to suffer. And an appropriate response to that is to be grateful in spite of your suffering and attempt to make the best of it, and perhaps to alleviate that where you can. Or to take the perspective of Mephistopheles. Everything is flawed right from the beginning. If this suffering it's the price of being, when we should just eradicate the whole mess. And it's very common around people. Religious dimension sits at the bottom of life. It's not a set of superstitions, if so, why do you continue to go see it played out time and time again on stage? It's not just entertaining, you are educating yourself, you're seeing near archetypal representations of the structural elements of human behavior lays out by geniuses dramatically. So, you get the information that way, because anyone is that smart enough to understand it abstractly. We can only see it played out, it's very difficult for us to transform that into full articulated philosophy. It took me 15 years to reach at this level of narrative. I believe that reality itself is a forum for action. It's not a place of objective things. If you are a true Darwinian, you have to believe that. Because Darwin believed that we are selected for survival as a consequence of our actions. So, our actions are what actually constitute the fundamental truth. You live or die by your actions. Actions have patterns, we have character, nature. That's why dramatic representations can be distributed worldwide and everyone understand them. We understand them innately and we are drawn to them. Like Pinocchio. A story about confronting chaos and rescuing history in order to become a genuine human being. Pinocchio goes to the bottom of the ocean to confront chaos in the form of a whale, rescues his father, and that makes him a fully developed human being. That's a story the Egyptians told 4,000 years ago. We say to our children, focus on the hero. So, you should show to your children frightening things. Well, the world is frightening, you're going to shelter them from that. So just launch them to the world like edible prey. That's why you need to tell your children what to do. Keep the eye on the hero. Despite the fact that it's dangerous, he prevails. That's the story of humanity. It's not like the hero is waiting for someone else to do the dirty work. I was trying to understand how the world could come to the point of being locked in mad, mutual assured destruction mode, in 1984. That we could constituted the world so that we're aiming at each other's mutual destruction, with a weapon with the capacity what was exponentially beyond that. It wasn't just for territory. Like one of the stories from Auschwitz. When the guards used to play a game. Where the prisoners were forced to carry wet sacks of salt on their back from one point to another, and back. Like why exactly you want to do that? Just for the suffering of people. That part exists, and you could understand it, but you probably won't want to. The religious stories are the fundamental narratives. Grammar of behavior, and drama is religious. Religious is the drama, because you can't go any deeper than that. Like the archetypal human being is a hero voluntarily confronting the unknown. That's what we are. And if we are not that, we are something else, and that's not a good thing. DNA there's evil and good. So, you need to get rid of your own evil. Example. Try not to say anything that isn't true for a month. But what about white lies? Like, when your wife asks you how do I look in this dress? You don't think she look very good, and you say you look great. But that isn't the right answer. The right question it's like, don't ask me manipulative questions. Or like I don't answer questions like that. The truth is more sophisticated than that. People are telling lies all the time to spare other people's feelings. But they are no good reasons for lying. You pollute your speech by lying. Chaos is transformed into order by the word. If you want chaos turn into hell, lie. If you want chaos turn into heaven, truth. Fighting evil does matter, but it's not corporations, not socio-political structures. It's just fix up your speech, fix up your family, and if you manage that, maybe you could dare to start thinking about something more complex than the family level of organizations. There are people whose lives are a god-awful mess. And they're out protesting about something that's destroying the world. It's like, if we put you in charge, it won't get better. You have to decide what you're up to, you're either trying to make things better or worse. You decide which side you're on, and how much you're on that side. Truth, it's the fundamental virtue. Without truth you don't know where you are, what you're doing, who you are. And the only reason that you can get away with anything is pride. I'm smart enough to twist the fabric of reality in my favor. Well, go ahead, see what happens. Even if you get what you want, the outcome will not be pretty. It's a fool's victory. Propaganda, it's a conscious attempt to change the way you think or look. But art, the artist is trying to figure something out, engaged in the act of artistic production, then the art object is the result of that exploratory attempt. In art you are always exploring things that you don't know. And the reason that art is subversive, because exists on the border between articulated knowledge and the unknown itself. Where articulates knowledge is born. Like even nihilistic punk rockers like music. Music seeps in. Music helps them celebrate life. They won't criticize the music. Maybe they don't like the lyrics. But can't criticize music as a phenomenological entity. Or like dance. They're beyond criticism, because you can't really say what they are about. So, art is really subversive or transformative. Gaza. I always ended up at the individual level. So, if you want to help the situation on Gaza, be more truthful with your spouse. We don't live in linear relationships with one another, we live in networked relationships. You are connected directly to about 1,000 people, through the course of your life. So that 1,000 are connected to 1,000, that's a million, so you are one person away from a million, so 2 people away from a billion people. And the networks has as many centers as there are nodes. And one of the implicit presuppositions of the Judeo-Christian tradition is that each soul is a center of the cosmos. We don't know if that's true. Like consciousness, we haven't advanced in our understanding. Fact, we have gone backwards over the last 400 years. We don't know anything about the relationship of the brain to conscious awareness. Like we know things about human being, we are fundamentally explorers of the unknown. We take things apart and put things together and communicate the results of that, and we found pleasure in that. But don't underestimate the utility of getting your life together. Besides, you can do that, you won't hurt anyone if you do that. You'll just make things better, plus it's kind of humble. You want to fix the world, fix your life. It's harder to rule yourself than to rule a city. You are more complicated and more important. It matters what you do with your life. Matter for you and for everyone else. And probably matters for the destiny of being. In some sense, that's what it means to be made in God's image. You can say that you don't take that stuff very seriously. Our whole legal system is predicated on that idea. You presume that you have intrinsic value, it's a presupposition. Well, what is intrinsic value? Means it's grounded in something, it's a transcendent value. Even if you don't believe in it, you act it out. And you'll be annoyed if anybody interferes with your transcendent value. So, who cares what you say you believe? What do you know about yourself? We wouldn't have psychology if we were transparent to ourselves. We wouldn't have drama. Just because you believe something about who you are, it doesn't make it true. What kind of parenting or educational practices help to develop such arrogance like Eric Harris? I shouldn't lay responsibility at his parents. People make choices. Like science, look for how causal sum is factor. Look at sociological or economic causes. And all these deterministic events on the social side and natural side. Nature and nurture, that's all you are. Well, maybe not. It's actually nature, nurture and consciousness. And consciousness seems to be able to make choices, and seems to matter. So, you can come from a wretched family and social circumstance, where everything is stacked against you. And come out pretty damn good. Most people who abuse their children, were abused as children. Causal, right? Well, no. Most people who were abused as children, don't abuse their children. The causality only works when you go from the abuse back. And because if they did, it would spread exponentially. And then everyone would be being raised by seriously violent abusive parents. In short time everyone would be a violent abuser. And that doesn't happen. So, the horrors of history don't necessarily accumulate and become transferred. Like one client. She had the worst mother possible. And she had every reason to perpetuate her misery as a consequence of resentment, against his son. And she had resentment. But she swore. I'm not going to do this to my son. And she did a great job. She didn't overprotect him. His son tells the truth, he gets a career. Straightforward young guy, and likes his mother. So, the problem is, as Nietzsche observed, any complex event can produce multiple causal pathways. Determinism. I think the world is too complicated to be deterministic. So, thank you so much for your time.